It's kind of hard to really describe my entire personality into one word. I would probably say the best word that suits me is maybe ambitious. I think a lot of people think that I don't really have direction in my life because I'm so fluid, but in reality, I think I keep a lot of my own personal goals within myself. And every single day, I do something little just to get closer to my goal. I don't believe that you can just go to sleep and wake up and your goals are going to be all met. That's not how, the world works. I think you have to constantly just remind yourself what your dream is and constantly just nourish that. Regardless if it's one step every single day. You can't change the world in a day, but you can really make progress every single day. I think my main fault is that I think too much. I like to second guess myself, and maybe it's not always a bad thing. I think I like to look at one object and kind of shift my own perspectives into so many different types of colors. And that way I can get a true, deep understanding of what I'm thinking about, of what I'm pursuing, or an object that I perceive, because our perception is very limited. So in a sense, maybe that is my biggest weakness, but maybe also my strongest point as well. I haven't really given much thought into this question. I honestly am not really that picky. I think I would prefer to stay in California in the United States. But wherever life takes me, I feel like we can't fully control every aspect of our lives. And I'm a pretty simple guy. As long as I have food and shelter, then I'm pretty A-okay. Regardless, as long as I have the people that I truly care about in my life, where I actually live, it doesn't really matter. I think as I've gotten much older, I've realized that home is not a physical place. It's kind of a mental state, and I would like to live in a place of happiness in my own self. I think my favorite painter, it's probably really generic because I'm Mexican, but I would definitely have to say Frida Kahlo, and not for the reasons that she's kind of exploited over. I think lots of people use her image as profit, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I love Frida Kahlo because she was a woman who really tested social boundaries. She really experimented with her gender, she experimented with her art, she experimented with her sexuality, and she experimented with just life. I think she was extremely beyond of her time because she was able to see things that no one, and especially her time, nobody would even discuss. So I really admire her because of her political ideologies, and I think that's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about Frida Kahlo. They just know her as an artist, but they don't know as a bisexual, disabled woman that she really was. So I think seeing more of her as an actual human and not just like an artist is really beautiful, and I think a lot of people need to take the time and not only just slap on her image onto their Instagram profiles, but really take the time to understand the way that she thought. I love her the most because she didn't allow society to restrict her as a human being, and that's something very bold, and that's something that I constantly kind of battle with and struggle with every single day, is living my life for me and not for society. I think I would probably have to say my grandmother. And I know it's kind of ironic because mostly everybody will say a family member, but I admire my grandmother the most because she lived an entire life of suffrage and sacrifice. She sacrificed so much for not only herself, but for basically her lineage. And I think that's what a lot of people who migrate to this country have in mind. I always think of life as just passing the baton to accomplish the next step. And because our lives are so limited, we don't have the entire time to run around we can't run through our lives and accomplish every single thing that we want. So you have to constantly keep passing down this baton to the next generation. And I feel like my grandmother did whatever she could to ensure that the baton was passed. And that's how I see my life. I see my life as an extension of hers and the values. And I really admire her the most because although she is a traditional Mexican woman, she is ultimately one of the biggest feminists that I know, and she's very accepting, and she isn't really bounded by Mexican culture or traditions that can sometimes be taken as stigmatized to our to women and to, you know, social norms and things like that. So I would have to say my grandmother is my biggest heroine. My heroine in history maybe isn't really associated with like history or politics, but I would probably say the author Sandra Cisneros. I read her work when I was in high school, The House on Mango Street, and I chose an author to be a part of history because we forget sometimes that literature is history. When you read a certain individualized piece of work or literature, you're actually tapping into this new realm, into this new past. And I think a lot of history is preserved through literature. So her work just entitles The Suffrage of a Mexican Woman, and it really shines this light that is timeless for everyone to consume. And I think it's something that we sometimes forget, but it's important to constantly know about things like that. My philosophy is pretty like simple but complex at the same time. I would like to believe that I'm a true humanist deep down. I think the way that I try to live my life is to knock down every social barrier that we have. I think we need to deconstruct our own society and make a new one. So there's a lot of things about life that I kind of question, and I'm like, why is this not accepted, or why is this weird to do, or why is it that I'm not able to say what I really feel? When people ask you if you're having like a really crappy day, and someone asks you, hey, how are you doing? And you automatically just have to say, oh, I'm doing good, how are you? But deep down we're not doing well. And I always question that, and I would always think like, why do I have to lie just to fit this like social norm? So I think my philosophy in life is to deconstruct society and just be human.